Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, our guest is Janet Navarrette. Janet, did I say that right?
Yes, it's perfect.
Don't tell people how often I had to practice it, how many times. But so Janet is here today with us, and Janet is a fitness coach, an entrepreneur, and she also created what's called the Gym Party. And I love the name of that because, you know, when some of us overweight people hear about the gym, we don't equate it to a party.
Exactly.
For those of us who are overweight and getting older, aging, and have all the aches and pains. So I really love the name. So Janet, tell us more about you.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm Janet, founder of Gym Party. Gym Party is basically a fun virtual wellness program that helps everyday people find joy in fitness and nutrition. Because like you said, you know, when you think of the gym, you think, you know, these, you know, buff, burly guys and petite, skinny women. And that's not the case. Like that's not everyday people, you know, like we're all shapes and sizes. So I wanted to do something different and I wanted to create an inclusive community. And I'm a self-proclaimed fun expert. So, you know, I try to have fun in all aspects of my life. And that comes from a little bit of my childhood trauma as well. So just, living a life where I wanted to move on from all the trauma that I've lived through and just create a fun, positive environment for myself and other people. I'm first generation to immigrant parents. And so that's a whole other topic of trauma we could talk about if you want.
But immigrated from where? We'd like to know that.
Vietnam. So they're Vietnamese refugees. And so growing up in that aspect, there's so many stories we can get into. I'm also a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. So I, you know, try to always learn new things, and jiu-jitsu is one of those things that have really helped me become more confident, become more self-aware. I love Disney. So I'm a huge Disney enthusiast. So just all of that combined, we have a lot to talk about today.
Wow, that was a really well-rounded explanation of who is Janet, right?
Yeah. I try to take a little bit of everything because, you know, we're not all one-dimensional. We're not defined by what we do. And so I try to take a little bit, when I do these interviews, a little bit of everything in my life that's happening.
Yeah. And I'm really appreciative, too, that you shared that you've had some trauma because you know, as I mentioned earlier, our audience is, you know, women, mostly women, recovering from histories of trauma, whether it be childhood trauma of any kind, domestic violence, sexual assault. So, yeah, I know professionally you help all people, including trauma survivors. What about your story do you feel comfortable in sharing? Like, what are some adversities or traumas that you've gone through that you think women can connect to? And again, you don't have to share anything you don't want to share.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I have found at this point in my life, I like to share just all of it, just because when I hear other stories, it makes me feel better. So if I can share some of my stories and it helps other people feel a little bit less alone, then I'm more than happy to share as much. And so I feel free to ask as much as you'd like, but I came from an abusive home. My father was very abusive to my mother. He beat her regularly. And so I have an older brother. And so we kind of went through these separate processes, him and I. So I tried to stay there and protect my mom and you know, really it made me like experience all the trauma firsthand, visually, like just physically. But my brother, who is 3 years older than I am, he chose to kind of run away. So he ran away from home and then got into some trouble and into a gang. And so my brother was arrested in and out of juvenile hall and then and eventually arrested at 17 for a crime that we have really strict 3 strikes law in California, especially where we live. So because he was in a gang, he got a gang enhancement. So he got prison for life. So he's been in prison for not murder. So he didn't murder anyone. But because of the gang enhancement, he's been in there now most of his life. So since he was in and out of juvenile hall, but then when he was 17, he got arrested for that crime, and he's been there ever since. He's 41 now. So he's been there for that whole time. And so that trauma is a whole other thing, where, you know, a relationship with my sibling, and relationship with my mom, and then my dad eventually passed. But all of these experiences and these, you know, these years, I've learned that I had to kind of figure out what I want to be as a human being, because when you live within these traumas, you feel like that defines you. It feels like this is my story. Like this is who I am. I'm this person who's lived through all of this, and I don't really know where to go from there. And then because it affects your relationships, it affects your friendships, it just affects everything. And so I really had to figure out what was going to make me happy. And I found that helping people makes me happy. And I found solace in doing physical things, so like fitness, and finding a community around people who are very positive. And so I thought, well, you know, I really like doing these fitness activities. I really love sports. I really love doing all these things with other people. But there's something about the fitness industry that shows you just kind of one way. It's that, you know, the one way of like you have to be at the gym for 4 hours, and that's what fitness is, and that's what health is. And so I was like, no, that's not what it is. It's about like having a good time. It's about feeling good. It's about being around people who also want to feel good, and they lift you up. And so, you know, and so I wanted to create a community around that. And before COVID, I was doing corporate wellness stuff. So very similar things to what I'm doing now, but in a corporate setting. And then when COVID happened, we weren't doing on-site anymore. So then I was like, well, I got to think of this doing like something virtual. So that's when Gym Party was born. And so being virtual is great because I can connect with so many people, not just the people in my area. I can do it, you know, worldwide, essentially. So yeah, that's kind of been my calling, is just, you know, helping others through whether it be trauma, or whether it just be body image, or, you know, just confidence and motivation. There's just so many ways to find those things. And I think we've only been taught that there's one way.
Right. And thank you for sharing your story. I found that to be pretty powerful.
Thanks. Thank you for allowing me to. I mean, there's not oftentimes a platform, or when you go, you know, about your day, no one's asking you, like at the grocery store, like, how are you doing? Like, you know, like.
Yeah. I mean, I think it hit me, especially because when I was younger, my brother also got into a lot of trouble and was in juvenile detention, and he ended up being in adult prison as a juvenile because they were full. And it was pretty traumatizing for him. It actually, I think, was pivotal in turning his life around. You know, he ended up being a police officer of all things.
Oh, no way. Well, good for him. That's great.
Yeah, but, you know, and he wasn't in any kind of gang. We were from the middle of nowhere, right? There was no gangs. But bless your brother. I think being a young person, like he was so young to have this, you know, permanent thing happen.
Right.
I wish him well, and I hope he's really not. I hope there's mercy in some way during this process.
Yeah. And I think that's the unfortunate thing, is that I think he was rehabilitated many years ago. You know, like I think he realized his crime many, many years ago. Like I don't think he deserved life. I still don't believe that. And so I think that's the unfortunate thing, is that he was such a young kid and he didn't get the chance to, like, I think the system failed him. Like, I think what he needed was rehabilitation. I think he needed therapy. I think, you know, all the things that I did, but because I was not into trouble, I was able to have access to. But I really believe that that's what he needed, and not just being in a jail cell. And he's great now. He's very smart. He's very, really intelligent, and he's a vegan in prison. Like he's like so, it's so, you know, like he has personality too, you know. And I think mostly through all of it, we both realize how much we appreciate it and love our mother for all the sacrifices that she went through and her trauma, and how she's so positive right now. And I think that makes me feel like, well, if she can get through all the things she's been through and still be an amazing person, then I can definitely, you know, stack up and try to figure out things for myself as well.
Yeah. And if she's done work, and, you know, I don't believe in having people on my podcast to exploit them in any way. But if she's done her work and wants to share her story, tell her she can come on the podcast as well. You know,
that would be interesting. I would have to be there to interpret everything.
I thought you might have to say that. Yeah. Yeah. I know.
But you know what's funny is that she never has done any therapy. She, you know, I don't know what she
some sort of faith.
Yeah, she has definitely found, she is Catholic now, and we weren't Catholic growing up. But I think it's just, I think when you immigrate here to the US from a country that is a third world country, I think when you're here, there's definitely a feeling of much more privilege. And so you want to honor that privilege in a way where I have to live my best life, because, you know, otherwise she'd be in a third world country, not be able to have these opportunities for herself, for her kids. And so I think that has a lot to do with it, is that she probably, I know she's gone through a lot of childhood trauma too, you know, like her dad was really abusive as well. And so, and these are things she never talks about. I think it's just the part of the culture. You just don't talk about it. But you move on. And I think, but she chose to move on in a positive path rather than in a bitter, resentful path, which I really admire.
Well, that was probably just simply her personality.
Yeah. She's really awesome. Yeah.
Well, good. Yeah. And so can you share with us a little more? Like, I know fitness was a huge part of your healing journey. But what else was? Share with us the other things that you did to help you heal
absolutely.
and recover.
I would say I did do some therapy. But I would say the pivotal moment in my life where I decided like I really need to work on myself is when I met my husband and my boyfriend at the time. But like when I knew that I had to not carry these, there's something happens within you when you carry trauma inside, and you can't help but carry that into you just feel like is love even real, you know? Right. And so I had to really rethink about what love is and what I wanted out of love, and how he was willing to be there in a way that was, okay, well, what do you need me to do? And it's like, no one's ever done that for me before. No one's ever said, Janet, what do you need? You know? And so because he was like that, like to me, and I just couldn't believe it, I just wouldn't allow myself to open up in that way. I realized, there's somebody here that wants to be there for me and wants to love me in a way that I want to be loved, or I need to be loved. And so I need to open myself up for that. So what do I need to do that? And so it was just a lot of reflection and a lot of like allowing love to be a part of my life in a way that I never thought it would be possible. And so it was a lot of just being very honest about my feelings and being very open to sharing every thought, every fear, everything in my head with him. And I think because he was the right person to share that with, it helped me heal, because he never judged me for how I felt. He came with me to visit my brother. He never questioned, my relationship with my mom. And I mean, sometimes my mom has this thing where not like she takes advantage of me, but because being a first generation child, you have to translate things and interpret things. Yeah, exactly. And so he would stick up for me. And it's like, you need to let her do it, let her figure it out. But then also didn't judge me or make me feel guilty if I let her depend on me, and so it was a really happy balance of like standing up for me, but also allowing me to have this relationship, the relationship that I wanted with my mom. So I think he was just the right person to make me reflect and want to be better and want to live in a way that I saw a happy relationship. And my parents fought all the time, and my husband and I never fight. Like, we never even raise our voices, like, and like, he's so like, it's just a whole different thing. And so, and it's possible. Like and I think that was the pivotal moment for me when we first met. And I think our relationship is something that I'm most proud of, because I never thought that this could happen. I never, ever thought, but it took work. It took work from me and him. Like he had to learn about things, and he learned things about himself. And so like, it's just really this great relationship that I never thought that would be possible.
And did you always believe that if you could find it, you deserved it? Or was that part of the healing too? Knowing that
was definitely part of the healing too. It wasn't like I didn't think I deserved it. I just never thought I needed it. Yeah. Because I just
smart, independent woman, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was like, because I saw what love did to my mom, and like, I've always been abandoned by men in my life. And so, when my husband Gabriel didn't abandon me, it was like, what? Like, you're still around? And I'm like being very, when you try to like push people away, and that just never happens. And so, I had to kind of let go the layers of like, I'm an independent woman. And it's just like, oh, no, we have to start working as a team. And that was so much fun, like figuring each other out and like being able to compromise. And I just found that way more fulfilling than like, I got this on my own.
Yeah. Well, we're designed to be in relationships with people too.
Yeah.
Even when they hurt us, because sometimes like, even in healthy relationships, there's an unintentional hurts, it's part of the human condition.
Yeah. And I think that's about, when those situations do happen, and they very rare, it's like, it has usually to do with chores or something like that. But like,
it's always about chores.
It's always about chores, or like, what we're going to eat for dinner or something like that, but when those type of situations happen, and we're just way more equipped to not like kind of let it escalate, so it's great.
Well, it sounds very healthy. So that's, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice. And I think it's such a wonderful message for women listening to heal, that are hearing this, that it is possible not only to heal, but to also find love. And there are healthy men out there to date and marry.
Absolutely.
Or healthy people. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there are more of them than not, I think. But, it just takes a little bit of opening yourself up and taking that risk. And, honestly, my friendships improved too. So not only, being a good, significant other just also made me realize like, well, what other aspects can I be better at with other people? And just being there for my friends more made me a better friend, and made me happy because I want to be a better friend. And so it just improved my friendships. And and I mean, I'm not saying everything is perfect, obviously, but having that awareness of yourself and what your triggers are is so helpful. It's so helpful.
Yeah. And just like how trauma can impact every area of our life, like every single possible area, healing has the same impact. So if you're healing one part, it often translates to healing other parts. So I love that you said that too about your friendships.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also into my work, it's made me this more compassionate person. And like, I think that's what a fitness space needs, is you need compassion, you need non-judgment, you just need to be a human being and not this like tough coach and trainer and like, give me more reps. It's like, sometimes I'm like, oh, are you having an okay day? Like, I always like start with like, how's everybody feeling? Cause I want to know how much I can push you and how much I should push you, if I should push you at all. And I want to know how your day is. I want to know like what your kids are doing. And, I want to know all these things, because that's part of health and wellness. It's not just how much weight you can lift. It's all 360. It's like how you're feeling inside. and how stressed you are and how all these things. And I think, all of these things in my life that have happened have just made me more compassionate and made me want to know and learn these things about other people. And it's made me a better coach.
It's made you a better human.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Work in progress, but getting there.
Yeah. And it probably had helped you feel more compassionate to most of your family as well in different ways. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what about your dad? Do you know much about his past, his trauma history?
Yeah, I just know that his family they were like just always fighting and always arguing. Like that's kind of the dynamic that he has, like 8 brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. And to when they were grown up, they would just kind of butt heads about these. I was too young to know that like what they were fighting about. Just remember a lot of yelling. Mm-hmm. And just, so my dad, so my mom and my dad got a divorce when I was 16. And that was kind of the start of my mom and our healing journey together. And so it was it was just all about me and my mom, and my brother was in prison. And so I didn't see my dad for 15 years. And then I found out that he had passed away from a drug overdose. And then to make things even more complicated, he had remarried and then had 3 daughters that were,
wow.
Like at that time I was 30 and they're in their teens. Like they're young, they could be my kids. Mm-hmm. And so like it tripped me out big time. But I know like in Vietnamese culture, just violence and domestic violence specifically is so normal. Mm-hmm. So like it's just part of like, being a husband.
Women are property. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just remember visiting when I was young, Vietnam. When I was young, I was 11 years old. And we were just in the living room, and then my uncle and my aunt were arguing, and they like went into the room. But then the room is like the doors are all open, and the window is really big, so you can see in. And he was just hitting her in front of everybody. Like, yeah. And I grew up that way, yes, but it was always like hush hush in our house, because in the US, that's not something that's allowed. And so it was always kind of like something that wasn't talked about in my house that was being done, but we didn't tell our cousins or our families or anything like that. It was just like, this is just what happened in our house, and we don't talk about it. But when I saw it done in front of everybody, that it was no secret and it was completely normal and nobody was stepping in. Like as a kid, when you see that, you're just,
it's shocking. Yeah.
So shocking. I mean, obviously I remember to this day, that's how shocking it was. And so, I still have moments of like PTSD of like, if I hear loud sounds, I get real jumpy in my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get real anxious when I like hear just really loud noises. But, so like in that culture, I think it was just completely normal. And my dad was so intelligent. Like my parents immigrated here, and my dad put himself through school. He was a high level engineer, from nothing. And so everybody in our non-immediate family was just really admired him for that. But they didn't know that he was like, had this like secret of like beating my mom, had a gambling problem, had a drug problem. And so
he had a lot of demons, I guess.
Yeah. And so it's been hard for me to forgive my dad and like forget all these things. But I think, like I said, like in finding true love, I've been able to kind of just move past it and not again let that define me. I was really surprised when we found out that my dad had passed. When I talked to my brother about it, he was so sad. Like I was not sad at all. Like I was just like, well, I hadn't seen it. Yeah. I hadn't seen him for 15 years. Like it was just like, okay. Like my mom was like, please go to the funeral for me. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll go for you because you're asking me, but I don't really want to go. Mm-hmm. But my brother was really, really sad. And then it made me think like, what kind of relationship did my brother have with my dad and how he kind of saw him? And I think, again, like, I feel like my brother and I live 2 different worlds. It's like the same household.
Age difference was there?
Between 3 years, just 3 years. Yeah.
Well, one of the things about a death when there's distance or trauma is it makes it more complicated. And also then there's no chance for the hope dies. When the parent dies, there's no hope that things will get fixed. You know?
Right. Yeah. I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. And maybe that's what my brother thought, is that, there was some semblance of repair. But for me, it was like, I just didn't want it. I didn't want it. And and for me, it was like real surprising for my brother, because my dad, for some reason or another, never hit me, but hit my mom and my brother. So I thought my brother just, my brother had even told me about how he thought my dad was going to kill him one night. And so it was so traumatic. And so I just watched these things, but my dad never threatened me in that way physically. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was because I was the youngest, if I was a girl, if he saw me in a different way, like his, baby girl or something like that. I've never asked my dad, like, why did you not hit me? But
do you know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it doesn't mean less trauma for you. It's actually more traumatizing to see our loved ones be hurt. It's very threatening. Yeah, statistically, it's very threatening to witness that. It makes us question our safety, our stability, and especially when your mom is supposed to be someone who protects you and nurtures you. It makes it hard to trust that when she's being hurt. So I am in awe of how well you've done on your recovery. You're not just physically strong, but you got a lot of inner strength with you. And one of the questions I usually ask my guests, because I'm such a book nerd, like, do you have any favorite books that inspired your healing journey at all? And if not, it's okay, but it's just one of my questions.
I don't have any books that inspired the healing, but I mean, my favorite book it's not something that's a book that's well known, but it's called The History of Love by Nicole Krauss.
I love that book.
Do you love it?
I love that book. It's such a good book.
It's such a good book. And I just found it one day in the bookstore. I was like, this looks interesting. Picked it up. I was like, this is the best book I've ever read. Like, the story is so endearing. So I'm glad you know it, because I'll say that and people are like, oh, good luck to look it up.
It's such a great book. Yeah.
And
very hopeful, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So if someone's looking for a feel-good love story.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And is there anything else you want to tell us about your entrepreneurship? Like, do you have any products? Is it courses that you offer? Do you have other coaches that work under you? Tell us a little more about what you do.
Yeah. So we do have like yoga instructors. We have different Pilates instructors, and I try to keep our team as diverse as possible, because I wanted to reflect the kind of people that we, welcome into our community as well. So it's a virtual platform. We have live classes with a coach. So when you sign up for your whole family. So one membership is good for you and the entire family in your house. Wow. So I wanted to make it inclusive, and then having your family jump in along always helps. You don't feel alone. And so, we have a really great, fun community that we all take class together virtually online, and it's just through Zoom, and it's coach led. So every day is different. So you hop on and every workout is different. It's for all levels. The coaches are great at modifying and making sure that each person gets personalized attention. So even though it's a group class, you do get like that personal training type feel, and you just pay a monthly fee every month, and you get unlimited classes, unlimited coaching, and unlimited fun.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really great. And so my listeners that are interested in working with you, or having a membership, or hiring a coach, where should they go?
Yeah, that's great. They can go to www.gymparty.com. Sign up. On the top right hand corner will say connect with the coach. You sign up, and then I'll probably be the one to contact you first, and then we'll go from there. We'll learn about what you want and what your goals are, and then we can get you set up.
Fabulous. All right, and as we wrap up, are there Any remaining thoughts or any words of wisdom or inspirational words for our listeners if they're feeling kind of low or hopeless? What could you say that might be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that everybody's story is different, but there are so many similarities in what you're feeling in all of us. And so even though you might feel like you're alone or feeling hopeless, there's always going to be something out there to bring you joy. So it just takes a little bit of work to find it. And whether it's fitness or maybe it's not fitness, maybe it's painting or maybe it's going on a walk or getting a pet or whatever that may be, don't be afraid to try. And I think the fear of trying is always going to hold you back. So don't be afraid. Worst that can happen is it doesn't work out. That's all. You can just keep trying. Just keep trying and you'll find that joy, I promise.
Beautiful. Thank you, Janet, so much for being on with us today.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.